What's up, everyone? Welcome back. Thanks for tuning in again. I've said from day one that I wanted this video series to be helpful, useful, practical to you, whether you're looking to sell or buy something. When it comes to the latter and buying specifically, I can't really think of anything more practical than information and advice on mortgages, interest rates, what goes on behind the scenes when it comes to those couple of factors and everything else that comes with it. I'm no expert. So today what I've done is I brought in my good friend and trusted mortgage broker, Mike Jones from Centum Mortgages. Mike's been in the business for 16, going on 17 years and brings a wealth of knowledge. So I wanted to bring him in just to help us steer this ship. So MJ, how are you, man?
Good. How are you?
Yeah, I'm good.
Thank you for having me.
Of course. Thanks for stopping by today. Did you catch that Raps game last night?
I did. Good to see fans back in the building.
Definitely. And the game before, good back-to-back, 2 wins.
Yeah. They're in the playoffs right now.
Yeah, not bad, especially when it's against, even if they're banged up and unhealthy and down a couple men. It always feels nice to beat the Nets. That's for sure. I'm back.
For sure. Yeah. Good to beat Dragic.
Yeah, I heard he got booed pretty good.
Yeah, he did.
So in true Mike and Josh fashion, we always tend to start off our business-related conversations with sports. But like we tell both of our wives, there's worse things in life to be addicted to. Let's get right to today's topic. What personal info do I need to complete a mortgage application? So you have someone come in your office, they're interested in buying a house, they've never done this before, they don't know where to start. What do you tell them? What information do they need to gather? What advice do you give them?
So, I mean, the first thing is we get a lot of inquiries about just general phone calls. Hey, how much do you think I qualify? Here's my information. I mean, the most important thing is we have to get it all on paper. So we would need to start with doing a full application. So what would be on a full application? The obvious stuff, right? We're gonna need your name, your date of birth, your social insurance number, your address, all your employment information. I need a detailed list of your assets and liabilities, how much you have for down payment saved. So I mean, really, we're going to ask you almost everything about yourself personally in order to start the actual application, right? And that's going to give us a really good idea as far as how much you qualify for to get going. However, I think over the past couple of years, things have changed quite a bit as far as what I'm asking for document-wise and when we're asking for it, if that makes sense.
Time is important, right? And I see it all the time too. And I mean, I think it's probably a fair thing to assume and say, just even from my own experience, that someone will come to me, they'll call me, I'll meet them at an open house, they're actively out shopping for something. When you really ask them the question about the financing piece, you realize fairly quickly for a lot of people, they don't really have grounds to be shopping for where they're shopping for, or more importantly, they don't have an idea of what to be shopping for because they haven't had that conversation with a lender or a mortgage broker.
Absolutely. And I also find, for whatever reason, some people, I'd say they self-qualify themselves, right? So they don't feel a need or an urgency to, well, when I'm ready to buy the house, then I'll do the mortgage application, but I'm pretty strong, my credit's good, I'll qualify. Well, that's great. However, there's more reasons that you want to do the approval now. So, I mean, we can start with, I guess speaking in context of pre-approval, rate holds, right? So, if Josh, you come in today and you say, hey, hi, Mike, I want to buy a house. Great. Let's send you for pre-approval. We might know that you're strong and you're going to qualify, but right now, with rates being as volatile as they are and moving at the pace they are, I think it's important that we lock a rate in. So lock a rate in, what does that mean? Is I can send a mortgage approval to a bank and say, hey, here's approval for Josh. Please hold this mortgage rate as of today's rates for the next 120 days. So let's just pretend today's best rate's 3.19. I get a pre-approval today. As long as you move in within 120 days, your rate is going to be 3.19. Now, if next month it goes to 3.29 and then 3.39, 4.9, 5.9, you're fine. You've guaranteed yourself a rate because you've done the work up front. So it's not only about, just finding out how much you qualify for, but there's a huge benefit in holding a rate right now because they are volatile. The other thing is document-wise, so other than the name, date of birth, everything like that, documents are so important because from a banking perspective, in the past, if Josh, you're buying a house, generally you'd be able to put conditions in, right? So you'd say, hey, seller, I'm going to buy your house. Just give me 5 days to get all my finances together. Well, I mean, unless we're very lucky, that's not an option now.
Right.
So we have to make sure, and you know, you're likely to, and I'm not saying every offer has no conditions, but you're likely to be entering into an agreement where you're not going to have the opportunity to get your financing stuff together after you put the offer in on the house. So we need to do that before. So what does this entail? So many different people need so many different things when it comes to documents for a mortgage. If you're self-employed, you need, 2 years tax returns, you need notice of assessments, proof you're self-employed, all these other things. If you are a part-time worker, we need 2 years T4s. If you're, commission, you need 2 years history. So I think one of the most important things to know is, there's no standard on what documents are needed on a mortgage approval, because everyone's different, because everyone has a different situation. As well as each lender, just to make things even more fun, each lender has their own guidelines on what they need as well. So we never want to assume, oh, they're only going to ask me for this, or they're only going to ask me for that. There's reasons that, a bank might come back and say, hey, we need verification of your income for 2020 because we want to make sure you're working the entire year, or whatever the case is, right? But the big key being, income documents are key, and what documents are required are based off the individual.
And I think that's a really good point too, right? And to me, that's maybe the most important point out of that, is that it depends on you. It depends on your circumstances. It depends on your situation. Like you said, whether you're self-employed, or whether you're part-time, or you're not on a permanent, or whether you're on a contract. That's something that we run into as well. And you and I have talked about that in the past. So I think people need to realize that it depends on what your circumstances are. That's really going to kind of lay the path as to what you might need to provide a mortgage broker like yourself in the case of applying for a mortgage. So it's important to know that there's differences.
It is. And, I feel like now as well, I generally will ask people for more stuff than I need. And it sounds silly, but that way I have it, because there was a time when in March 2020, the banks kind of changed. Life changed for many of us in many different ways, but including the banks in applying for mortgages, the documents they asked for kind of shifted to being tighter. So prior to that, you buy a house, I need a letter of employment dated within 2 months, or, pay stub dated within 2 months. But, after March 2020, they want everything. Basically, we want your most recent pay stub. We got to make sure you're still working there and you weren't laid off. We need a job letter that's going to be dated within 2 weeks of the application date, because things were moving at such a crazy pace back, a couple of years ago, that you might be working today and not tomorrow. So they need more up-to-date information. So I think, to me, we ask for more and then you're covered. So if you're ever in a situation where the bank comes back and says, hey, can you also supply us this? We already have it. And then we don't have to bug you for it.
Right.
But getting these documents together, whatever documents are for you, is the most important, because if you're going to be entering a contract without any type of conditions in there, we need to make sure all the I's are dotted, the T's are crossed, and that you're absolutely going to be okay.
Yep.
So
smart and bang on. And I think that's the conversation that we find ourselves having with people all the time too, is do your due diligence and your homework up front, get yourself prepared, and it'll put you in a better position going forward, and also give you the information up front that you need to roll on in terms of, when you're out shopping, knowing what you're looking for, just to make sure that you're shopping within the right price points. So you're not going to run into any problems later. One quick question, and we can end it on this one, and maybe we'll put up another video down the road talking about the difference between, a soft and a hard credit check. But when it comes to those requirements, credit checks are still just as important, right? And part of the process as well.
Yeah. And that's actually a really great question. So I've had a couple previous clients in the past couple months that they've called and said, hey, I bought a house and I sent it to my bank and I'm not approved. Right. Okay. So I get into it and I get into it, I look at it and I say, wow. So when I do a credit check, I can see who else has checked the credit. So, maybe they checked it on a different platform and I can't see it, but no credit check. You're approved for a mortgage and they didn't check your credit. But it happens, right? It's an unfortunate reality that not all the due diligence is done, and each mortgage person may do things differently, right? Like it's $20 to check your credit bureau and I do it right away. It's one of the first things I do, because that answers a lot of our questions. But I think for anyone watching this video, if you think, hey, I've been pre-approved, and you're dealing with anyone, bank, mortgage broker, any individual, and you're getting pre-approved for a mortgage, if you're not asked, if you can have your credit checked, then they probably didn't check your credit. So scary right off the bat that you're walking around with a pre-approval that's not really a pre-approval. I call those pre-qualifications. So pre-qualification is me saying, okay, Josh, what's your income? That's great. I'm not going to ask you documents for it. How's your credit? Good. Okay. Not going to pull your credit until you buy a house, right? So pre-qualification is like a couple questions and yeah, you're fine. Go buy a house. A pre-approval is, let's dig into this. Get me your documents. So if you're pre-approved and you've supplied 0 income documents to your bank, I'd seriously question that pre-approval and the validity of it, because you can't tell me what's wrong with my vehicle without lifting up the hood and looking at it. And you can't get a full-blown pre-approval without supplying documents that are needed to get a pre-approval. So unfortunately, it is something that we see. And anyone watching this, just know if you're in that situation right now and you're pre-approved and you're looking for a house currently and you haven't supplied income documents or anything like that to a bank, I question whether or not you really are pre-approved, and maybe confirm that you do have a pre-approval and not a pre-qualification, because they are night and day different.
Yeah, absolutely. I agree. Yeah. And I think that was going to be the topic for maybe a future talk, was the difference between a pre-qualification and a pre-approval, because it's a really important thing that I think a lot of people don't realize, because these tools that float around online now, where it's quite easy for someone just to pump in what, and again, it's subjective, right? They put their income in, they usually round up. There's no input for debts or any monthly payments that you have on an ongoing basis. There's no credit check, to your point. It's very easy to get one of those pre-qualifications, but it's just as easy to then go walk around and start shopping with that pre-qualification, assuming that you're safe. So this has been great. This is actually really the exact point of why I wanted to have these conversations and bring someone like you in, because we can really dive down into the sort of day-to-day nitty-gritty practical stuff that matters. And I think this is it's our first video together, but I think we started with a really good topic, because this is kind of where it all starts for people when they get to that point of wanting to shop for a home. Where should you start?
Yep.
You should start here to get your financing in line and figure out what your options are. And most importantly, get in touch with someone like you so they can point their ship in the right direction. So as always, thanks for your time. Thanks for the update on the wraps at the beginning. It's always
thanks for having me.
Yeah, likewise. We'll talk again soon.
Appreciate it. You bet. Thank you.
Thanks,